guys, welcome to the Friday Waffle. I trust you've all had a good week. Where have I been? I was actually on an aeroplane this week. I was on an aeroplane yesterday flying to Campbelltown, which is only, it's 155 miles from where I live. But to get there by road you've basically got to go all the way up and all the way down. Now these are on roads that you would be pushing the truth if you class it as a B road. It takes about 5 hours to drive there, so yeah, I flew. So it's quite interesting. You're on one of these little planes and you certainly feel every bump. I can imagine if you had a bad experience in one of these planes it would probably put you off flying for a very long time. So anyway, yeah, that's that. It's weather's been cracking today. It's been really nice. It's actually been really nice the last couple of days. So yeah, this time next week, I've got to say there won't be a Friday Waffle. I might try and do a Thursday Waffle and put it out on Friday. This time next week I will be, I don't know what the time is, just give me a second. It's 8 o'clock. This time next week in 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, in 5 hours time, 1 o'clock in the morning, I will be embarking on the West Highland Way race, the 95 miles. Now I've got to say, now I do apologise guys, I mean this has got absolutely bugger all to do with video games, but I know some of the guys that watch this probably are quite interested, but yeah, I've really not been in good shape at all, and there's a big part of me thinking, what the hell am I doing attempting this race on, I wouldn't say no training, but my training this year has been absolute pants for various reasons, through kind of health reasons. I don't know whether it's like hay fever I suffer from, but I seem to be getting kind of quite breathless when I've been out running. Work has obviously taken up a lot of my time, my wife's shifts as well, so yeah, for different reasons my training this year has been absolutely crap. But you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give it my absolute best shot. I mean last year I did it in 30.5 hours. But you know what, if I can just get to Fort William in under 35 hours I will be absolutely delighted. But you know, I don't know, it's a long way, a lot could go wrong in that space of time over that distance. So anyway, that's that. Now, one of, in fact it was Lawn Boys Post 1975, Dave, he put up a video this week. Somebody at his work apparently accused him, he was kind of slagging him off about having a YouTube channel, and he basically accused Dave of being vain and having a bit of an ego doing YouTube. Now Dave was asking, you know, he was talking about, do YouTubers have egos? My take on it, in fact, you know what I'm going to, what I'm going to talk about is why do I make videos on YouTube? Do I have an ego? Do I do it for vanity's sake? As any of the sort of old timers, guys like Brian, and I don't mean that you're an old fart Brian, although you probably are, but Brian's been watching my videos for a very long time. Now when I started off this channel, I wasn't playing video games at all. I was really just, I'd kind of lost my gaming mojo. Excuse me, I'm going to eat and drink when I'm talking. Yeah, I'd completely got out of playing games, video games. There was nothing that I've got, which sounds crazy when I've got probably 50,000 games, you know, when I include ROMs and that kind of stuff. There was just nothing that I was playing at all, and I thought to myself, what can I do to kind of reignite my ego? My ego, listen to me, that was a bit of a slip there, I didn't mean that. To reignite my gaming mojo, that was what I was looking for, not ego, mojo. Now at that point, we're talking about 2013 September, something like that. I think it was late September, late 2013 I started. At that point I had been introduced, I always thought of YouTube was just another website where if you wanted to watch a music video you just typed it into YouTube and you can guarantee the video would be there. But then somebody mentioned to me about, you know, this person, Steve Benway, you know, you should watch him, he's into video games, and I'm like, what do you mean Steve Benway, what are you talking about? And he says, oh, you need to subscribe to him. So I did a bit of a search and I found Steve Benway's channel, and I really enjoyed what Steve was talking about. So yeah, that coupled with kind of losing my gaming mojo, I thought, why don't I record videos of me playing really shit games for 10 minutes. So I had a wee think. I thought, what can I call it? Tell you what, I'll call it Mamemeister 10-minute mashup. Now, I'm not going to go into details, but Mamemeister, I've been known as Mamemeister since 1997, basically since I got the internet. So yeah, I started recording these videos of me playing crap games, and you know, and you get to realise that a gauge of your success or how many people are watching is how many subscribers you have. And you know, when I first got the first 2 or 3, I'm like, oh yeah, beauty! I couldn't believe it that like there was 3 people had actually chosen to kind of want to see my videos. So you know, I kept putting out these videos, and bit by bit I started to get a bit of feedback from people who were kind of regular posting, and you know, here we are. Where are we? About a year and a half, 2 years later. Well, just under 2 years probably. I'm still making these videos. You know, in the scale of if you're going to gauge success with how many subscribers you've got. I'm just I was up to 341, and this week I've actually lost subscribers. So I think I was on more subscribers last week, and I've lost a couple. So I don't know what's going on there. But people have said to me, don't pay attention to subscriber levels, because apparently YouTube they closed down inactive accounts. So it could be that. It could be that somebody thinks I'm a dick and doesn't want to watch my videos, which is absolutely fine by me. You know, I've not got a problem with that. But anyway, yeah, here I am, still making these things. Now, why do I do it? Well, I do enjoy recording them. I enjoy. It's not an ego. It's absolutely not an ego. I mean, how can you look like this? And you know, I mean, some of my videos are bloody awful. When I look back at, you know, the editing and that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't. You'll notice that most other sort of YouTubers, they edit videos and they put fancy titles and that, and that's absolutely fantastic. But you don't get any of that shite from me. I mean, I don't even pause the video. The only time I pause when I'm making a video is because my camera overheats after a certain length of time, and also the memory card, I think it can only store up to 2 gig per video, so that's the only reason you'll ever get me pausing a video. You just get me warts and all. But yeah, why did I do it? I enjoy talking about this hobby of mine's, video games. I really do. I mean, it's something I've been doing since 1982, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So I enjoy playing video games, I enjoy talking about them, and I actually quite enjoy making videos. I really do. You know, I even watch some of my videos back. Like I said, I enjoy watching anything about sort of classic gaming. Carefully avoiding that retro word there. Yeah, and I would be lying if I didn't say that having not so much subscribers, it's having feedback on anything that you do, whether it's at work, whether it's personal, whether it's like something like YouTube. If you're getting feedback, whether it's good or bad, then you know that people are actually looking at it. So yeah, when I get feedback from people, from you guys, it makes me realise, hell yeah, let's continue. Now I've got to admit, the last couple of weeks, I mean, I've got the new They Did What sort of feature, which is based on software publishers. The last couple of weeks, I don't know why, but I think there's been a lot going on in my mind. I mean, my work has been really shitty busy. I was at a meeting on Monday, and my boss actually phoned me on Monday night and says, "Is everything okay?" And I says, "Yeah, why?" He says, "You're just very quiet today." And yeah, the job can at times get pretty stressful. So the job has been getting to me a wee bit. The last couple of days have been not too bad. I would be lying if I I did, if I said that the West Highland Way race next Friday is playing on my mind, you know, it's not like a 10k I can just turn up and do it. I mean, I don't want to fail at this thing. I've done it twice before. I've never not finished an ultra, but I do know I'm being a bit probably silly doing this thing. But anyway, I've had a lot in my mind, and the YouTube thing has maybe been at the back of my mind, and there are occasions where I think to myself, should I maybe take a break from doing this? Then I think about it and think, well, I would miss doing it, and I would do it if making videos got to a point where it became a chore, and I simply couldn't find the time. Then I would absolutely knock it in the head. I wouldn't say I would stop it, you know, permanently. I would maybe stop it for a wee while, but nah, I've thought about it, and I'm still going to keep doing this, guys. Yeah, I suppose, I mean, I'm a bit of a sensitive old twat. Losing subscribers, you always think, bollocks, you know, because at the end of the day, you like to see yourself climbing up, and then when you start going back the way, you're like, bloody hell, I put all this effort into making these things, and rather than more people watching, there's less people watching. But you know what, I do get good feedback for you guys, and I do appreciate it, and I can reassure you that I will continue. As long as people want to watch this kind of stuff, then I'll keep making videos. So I'm going to pause it before it gets to 2 gig. Hey, right, how did we get onto this subject? I can't remember. I don't know. I've written down a topic here. Real hardware versus emulation. Now I know I've probably spoken about this one quite a few times, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube that talk about this. Real hardware. Yeah, somebody, was it Kevin? Who else was it? No, it wasn't. It was somebody else. I can't remember who it was. Somebody else was talking to me about emulation and real hardware, and they were asking for my thoughts, and I thought to myself, that's quite a good topic. They were asking what my thoughts on emulation were. Now I've, again, apologies if I'm like a broken record. I mean, I have covered this subject a few times. I have been into playing old games pretty much since I bought a Spectrum emulator for my Commodore Amiga back in the mid-90s. Then when I got a PC, in fact it was really once I got the internet with my PC, I realised there was this thing called emulation. Now I'd heard the word emulate, you know, you hear singers emulating their heroes and that kind of stuff, but I'd never really heard it in any context that I was kind of familiar with until this thing called emulation seemed to spring up on the internet. And through kind of using, it wasn't Google, it was probably Yahoo, I discovered that there was these programs which you could download onto your computer allowed you to run games on other systems. Now that really blew my mind. I mean, it really did. Even going back to like the Amiga one, I had a Spectrum emulator, and I think latterly I got a Commodore 64 emulator for it. I've got to say they were pretty shite because they ran very slow. But on the PC, you know, here was, you were playing, you had the ability to play these games that you'd not played for like 20 years. So, you know, like the last time I'd played Bruce Lee and Exploding Fist was probably like, you know, 1986, 1987. And all I had to go on was memories, you know, remembering playing these games. And then here I was, I think it'd be 1997 actually, I suddenly had this opportunity to play these games again, and it was magical. It really was magical. And then I did a bit more, I'll use the word Googling, and I realised that, you know, there weren't just like what you call them, computer emulators. There was things that emulated arcade games, and I'm not going to start talking about the whole MAME thing. I've covered that at length in other videos. But yeah, I discovered MAME, and being able to play all these games that I'd only ever played like home versions of, things like Slap Fight and Terra Cresta, Arkanoid. It was absolutely extraordinary. It was an amazing thing. So over the years I built up a really considerable kind of collection of emulation, and you know, I played them all the time. I absolutely love having them. But then I think, when would it be? I'm guessing maybe 4 years ago. There was a guy on a forum that I'm a member of, and he put a post up that you had. It was something like 50 systems, 50 real hardware, bits of real hardware that he was wanting to get rid of. And he basically, what he said was, rather than sell them on eBay and make shitloads of money, he would rather they went to people who would appreciate them, friends who would actually appreciate them. So he had this list of, like, you know, every machine under the sun, from the Dragon, the VIC-20, the BBC, Amiga, Commodore, you name it, he had them. So as you can appreciate, there was a big hands up in the air type thing, including myself, and I was able to, what did I get off him? I got a BBC Master, a Dragon 32, a VIC-20, anything else? I think I got an Amstrad off him later on. In fact, I didn't. No, I didn't. I did get an Amstrad off him later on, but yeah. So anyway, I got these 3 computers, and it was mental to suddenly think, wait a minute, I've got this real hardware again. You know, I'd never even contemplated that, you know, I could go back and buy a real Commodore 64. So with getting these machines, which I didn't really have anything to play on, I started going on eBay and looking, and before I knew it, I had a Spectrum, I had a Commodore, I had an Amiga, and because I'm such a big fan of old hardware, I'm very fortunate that I've got a lot of friends who have, you know, who know that I'm a big fan of old hardware. So I've been given a shitload of old hardware over the years, and you know, I don't know how many. I couldn't honestly tell you how many systems I've got now. You know, it borders on probably the ridiculous. I've got probably most Atari machines that ever came out, most Commodore machines that ever came out. You know, I could talk for ages about what machines I've got, but anyway, yeah, emulation versus real hardware. So yeah, once I started picking up the real machines, the first problem was, well, bollocks, I've got to try and get a tape player. Then I need to try and get games to load, and the novelty of trying to load a tape soon wore off. I mean, the first thing I did with the Commodore 64 was I got this wonderful app called not Specky Tape. Yeah, you know what it is, it's called Specky Tape, but it's not for the Commodore, it's for the Spectrum. And this basically allowed me to load games. I could download. Apologies guys, I forgot to delete the last week's waffle off the card, so it ran out of space, hence the reason it just stopped suddenly. So if you think I've suddenly moved a wee bit, it's because the camera's moved slightly. So yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, so suddenly getting all this real hardware, and then eventually sort of getting means to load games. I mean, one of the guilty parties that's really caused me to spend a lot of money on original hardware is when I joined the Edinburgh Retro PC Club, because all these guys are like-minded. They've all got all these old systems, and there's nothing better to get you to want to go and buy a new system than when somebody else appears with some not new, you know, takes along a system. And you know, a lot of the guys were showing me different ways to load games using these SD adapters and that kind of stuff. So over the last couple of years, I've been getting more and more into playing hardware now. I'm not one of these, absolutely not one of these real hardware snobs. You get a lot of arseholes who they'll only ever play games on real hardware, and they totally diss people who play emulation. I think they're a bunch of wankers. You know, it makes no difference. What makes it different playing in real hardware? I think it's not that actual game that it plays any different. I think it's like it's the environment. To kind of give you a different analogy, if you wanted to watch a film, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Yeah, or I don't know, say like a group that you maybe used to go and see as a kid. Does it make it, just, I'll say for example the Specials, they're one of my favourite groups. You know, I love the Specials. Now, I could listen to a CD, or I could listen to music on, you know, my smartphone, listen to them playing. Now, that gives me the same, my ears are getting the same sound as I would if I saw them in real life. But going to a concert and listening to them, you've got, it's not just the sort of like the hearing sense that's working, it's the visual. You've got that, you can see them, you've got the atmosphere, you're standing up, you're dancing to the music, whatever, you've got all the noise and that going on around it. And it's the same with video games. I could put Manic Miner on, I could be sat down at my laptop, my PC downstairs, I could load up Manic Miner and I could use the keyboard to play it, or I could use an Xbox 360 controller to play it. And yeah, you're still getting to play the game, you know, you can't take anything away from the game, but there's something missing. And now, you can only really appreciate what's missing once you've actually sat down in front of a real Spectrum, either using the keys or a joystick, and you've got the wee rubber key in front, the wee rubber keyboard in front of you, you've got your Kempston joystick, the click, 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 click. It's, I think to me it's the controls are the big thing. You know, using a gamepad to play an 8-bit game, or even like an Amiga or an Atari ST game, it just doesn't feel right. It just, something's missing. So using real excuse me, using real hardware, you've got that, you've got the proper controls, the controls that you remember. The fact that you're having to, well, I was going to say wait for the game to load. I mean, most of the systems now I've got, they load instantly. But even that, having some of these games loading up, it's the loading, the anticipation of playing the game. You might have the loading screen, you've got the sound. In the Commodore 64's example, you'd have the music, the Ocean Loader, whatever it is, the US Gold, you know, the Star Spangled Banner, you got the wee tune playing, you got the wee sort of countdown thing. It feels, the game doesn't feel any better, but you've just got the whole package, if that makes any sense. Does it? I don't know. Using an emulator, you're still getting to play the game, but using real hardware, it just feels complete. It's not just the game, it's the controls, it's the sound. I mean, it's bizarre, but we take for granted playing a Spectrum game in an emulator, because you get the sound coming out the speakers, and you know, on your monitor or out the TV, whatever it is. You play a real sort of 48K rubber Spectrum, you've just got this wee buzzer thing at the bottom. So yeah, you're getting the real memories, the real experience, rather than a sort of a slightly watered down. But you know what? There's a lot of, that is the good thing about real hardware. You've got the full on, you've got the nostalgic looking at the machine, the physical touching the keyboard and that kind of stuff. You've got the real sort of experience. The downside to real hardware is A, it's bloody expensive sometimes. B, it's unreliable as hell. C, it's a pain in the arse to set up, try to tune TVs, you know, got to dig it out and that kind of stuff. Games take longer to play, hardware can crash, so there's all that. If anything, there's far more pluses to using emulation than there is hardware. All said and done, I would not get rid of my real hardware, for the reasons that I've already discussed. I love having, I mean, I've got some computers there. That Sword machine that I showed you a few weeks ago, you know, I've got machines there that I don't even use, and I know that probably sounds crazy because I keep going on about how I am not a collector, I buy things to play, but you know, I've got systems that I don't really use as such, but I just like having them. It's nice to have them. but I wouldn't get rid of my emulation ever, because I can play any game really for any system. Games, you know, classic example, like Radiant Silver Gun. There's games for the SNES. There's games for the C64. I mean, I did a 10-minute mashup of a game that is my guilty pleasure, The Fabulous Wonder, which I put up last week. It's a bloody awful game. It's written in BASIC. It's absolutely pish. But you know what? If it wasn't for emulation, there is no way I would ever have got to see that game ever again. And that is a fact. You know, what would be the likelihood of me being able to trace some basic game from 1983? So emulation absolutely has its place. Emulation will be here longer than any of my machines will. So if anybody tries to tell you that emulation's not playing, you're not a real video gamer if you're using emulation, tell them to go and fuck themselves, because that's bollocks. Both of them, you know, what I would say to you is use emulation. I mean, I use emulation for doing most of my mashups because it's a lot easier, it's more convenient for recording. But you know, I love my emulators, I also love my real hardware. So anyway, I'll pause this again, guys. Right, you might have, in fact I'll turn the light on actually. I just noticed I'm sat here in the dark. You've probably noticed I'm looking a bit more like Santa Claus. I hate shaving. I'm lazy. If I want to shave, I've got to have like a really hot shower for quite a while to kind of soften the bristles. I mean, my bristles are like bloody barbed wire. So that's why I tend to have stubble. Excuse me, I've got one of these sort of macaroon type things. Yeah, I'm a lazy sod when it comes to shaving. And my wife says to me, why don't you grow a beard? So I thought, yeah, give it a go. My daughter told me this morning, or this afternoon I should say, that I look really old with it because it's all white. I've got a shitload of grey. She says I look about 10 years younger when I don't have any stubble. So I was kind of thinking, do I keep it, do I lose it, whatever. So I said to her, what do you think? She says, no, I like it. So I'm going to give it a go, grow it for a bit. Apparently, well, as you probably know, beards are very much back in fashion. Apparently beards make you epic. So yeah, let's see if it does. Right, last thing I was just going to mention before I've got a couple of questions. Raspberry Pi. I bought from my mate a Raspberry Pi version 1. Now I was going to use it for a kind of media centre. A good mate put Xbox Media Centre on it for me and it was basically unusable. I think it's only got 512 meg of memory. Really slow, completely waste of time. So I told my mate about it because he was raving about it. He says it's the best thing ever. And I says, well, I beg to differ. I says, this thing you've done for me is crap. So he says, look, I can get you a Raspberry Pi 2. I think it's about 40 quid, 35 quid, whatever. He says, do you fancy it? And I says, hell, why not? So he bought me this Raspberry Pi 2 and he's put this Xbox Media Centre on it for me. And wow, colour me impressed. I mean, on this thing, they're, I don't know if you've never seen Xbox Media Centre, basically it's a front end, it's a kind of media front end. You can put games in it, but it's really for kind of a multimedia system, you know, watching videos, movies, photographs, music and that kind of stuff. But anyway, this thing, he kind of configured the card for me. He's put these like various channels, so there's multiple sort of like movie channels, so you can watch, you know, movies and that kind of stuff, even current stuff. Obviously the quality's not great. But the other night there I was sitting thinking, I've not seen Kes, or Kes as it's called. It's a film that came out many moons ago about a wee boy who brings up this kestrel. And I just typed in Kes, boom, there we go, 2 minutes later I'm sitting watching Kes. You know, it's virtually like having a video library on demand. You just think of anything you want, any film at all, type it in, bang, where you go, and this thing is flawless. I mean, I was watching a couple of The Walking Dead last night as well, and there's no stuttering, there's no buffering or anything, so, you know, if you fancy a media center, get yourself a Raspberry Pi 2, don't get the first one, get the second one, and you'd obviously need to configure it, you know, with Xbox Media Center, but it's absolutely cracking bit of kit. I'm well impressed, so yeah. So on to the questions. The ever reliable Mr. Williamson. Now last week I was criticised for not kind of coming up with a topic for the following Friday Waffle. As people said, somebody suggested, why don't you, you know, you put a topic out there for your subbies to put questions to you. So I just randomly thought classic video games. So Jamie, he's asking here, and I've not read them, so you know, hence the reason I'll probably be stuttering and scratching my beard for a wee bit when I think of an answer. Jamie's asking here, the early 80s was massively innovative, but many concepts were borrowed and improved upon by other companies. Galaxian, for example, is hugely more fun than the tedious Space Invaders. What are your prime examples of game concepts that were improved upon by other companies, rendering the originals redundant, or sequels made by the same company? Yeah, I mean, you've obviously mentioned a really good example there, Jamie. You're talking about Galaxian. I mean, Space Invaders, I tend to agree with you. Space Invaders, it's a bit of a chore to play nowadays. It's just it is quite a tedious game to play now. You know, back in the day, you know, we all loved it because it was the first kind of video game to kind of appear. But it's quite a boring game to play now. You know, I certainly don't play it all that often. As you say, Galaxian took the Space Invader sort of, you know, shell and just improved upon it tenfold. Other games that have done that. Funny thing is as you probably know, you know, I like my kind of shooters to be fairly simplistic. One of my favourite shooters is 1942. There's obviously been multiple sequels made. 1941, oddly, 1943, I don't know if it was 1944, whatever. Now they technically improve on 1942, but I don't enjoy them as much. I prefer the original. As I've always mentioned, I'm not keen on the sort of the energy bar type life thing. I prefer one hit and you're dead. 3 lives, you know where you stand. So that's one example that probably flips what you're talking about. I prefer the original. Games that have been improved on. I mean, you're obviously talking about arcade games, and again, I wasn't really around. I didn't get exposure to play the early games when they first came out because I just didn't live near to any arcades. So, I mean, the obvious answer, it's not a game that I particularly like, but the obvious answer would be like Street Fighter. You know, that was absolutely crap. It really was. It was a dire game. Then Capcom came along, and you know, they improved the graphics, they improved the gameplay, they made it quicker, it was sort of more fluid looking. They made a game that here we are 20 years later is still making money. They're still bringing out various versions of Street Fighter 2 I should say. So that's an example that they really took the original. I'm just trying to think. Says arcade wise, I can't really. I'm trying to even think. Nah, you know what, Jamie? I can't really. I'm struggling to kind of come up with an example. I mean, there's not many. There's been a lot of games that have had a follow up, but I can't say, oh, it's rendered. It's made the first one redundant. I mean, you know, a game that I love, Super Pipeline in the Commodore 64. We brought out a sequel to that, which is even better than the first one. But the first one's bloody brilliant. I love that to bits anyway. So I couldn't say I like both games. The second one is better, but I can't say the first one's still a cracking game as well. So yeah, apologies Jamie, I can't really think of any real examples. Game concepts that were improved upon. You know, I mean, you've got natural evolution, you've got, you know, you had Wolfenstein 3D then, which was pretty, I mean, I never really got to play that. Then they brought out Doom, which just took a hold of it, and it ramped it up 1,000,000%. I mean, Doom is an amazing game, and it, you know, basically pisses all over Wolfenstein. So, you know, that's just natural evolution. I wouldn't say it rendered the original redundant. So, yeah, I can't. That's about it, Jamie. It's probably not the best answer you were hoping for that one, mate. But I can't really think of much more. Number 2, if you were asked to list 3 games that shaped the industry, bloody hell, which ones would you choose and why? If you want to make it difficult for yourself, don't name Space Invaders or Pac-Man. The funny thing is, I've never really classed Pac-Man as shaping the industry. Yeah, Space Invaders and Pac-Man were probably responsible for really lifting the industry up with what's the word for it? I don't know. Braces? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. You know, before these games, before Space Invaders came out, you know, video games was a very low key thing, and you know, it was Pong and stuff like that. Space Invaders came along and suddenly people sat up and took notice, and you know, Pac-Man was a game that apparently really appealed to girls, whereas before it was always primarily a sort of male dominated hobby. So Pac-Man did a lot for video games, but that's not really what you're saying here. You're talking about games which shaped the industry. I mean, you're maybe talking about genre defining games. Christ, it is hard when you can't talk about these games. I mean, obviously we're not just talking about arcade games here. Well, you are actually, because it's classic video games. I mean, obviously, like home games again, you would say like Doom. Doom single-handedly created the third person or first person shooter. You know, it really did. It was like the first kind of horror survival type game. You know, that viewpoint. I mean, how many hundreds and hundreds of games have since followed that? I suppose you'd have to say like Street Fighter 2. That was really the game that just elevated, it created a genre again. It created the beat 'em up. I'm looking at my bead art on my wall. I would love to say Robotron, but I can't say that really. That didn't. What was the word you were using? That didn't really shape the industry as such. Donkey Kong, awesome game, absolutely amazing game. Did it kind of? I suppose it launched Nintendo. It launched Mario. Without Mario, what do we have? Donkey Kong. It's a cracking game in its own right, and it's probably one of the first kind of platform games, which obviously isn't as popular now. But yeah, if we hadn't seen Donkey Kong, we wouldn't have had Mario. We wouldn't have had Donkey Kong. We wouldn't have possibly even had Nintendo. You know, so yeah, that certainly helped kind of shape the industry. Anything else? Pivotal games that we're talking about. No, I can't. I know I should probably do a bit of research when I answer these questions, but I prefer just to do it cold, which unfortunately doesn't always work when I can't really think of anything. But yeah, I can't think of any other. I mean, I suppose you would have to say Pong, because Pong was the first. I mean, you had you had Computer Space, which was kind of played by nerds with wearing white jackets on big mainframe computers. But yeah, Pong was obviously the game that launched video games. I'm just trying to think. I mean, what games have you got now? I mean, the biggest games now are things like Call of Duty. So I suppose you could almost say that goes back to Doom. it's a kind of Doom type game, albeit with sort of like human enemies. There was obviously, you know, Call of Duty came out on the PC, and I think it came out on the PS2 as well. Excuse me. Yeah. So yeah, I suppose Doom was really responsible for launching a lot of these titles. Zelda, I guess, was responsible for launching the sort of RPG as well. Yeah. Yep, that's that one. Number 3. Oh, right. Favourite game from this era that isn't by Eugene Jarvis. Damn it. When you say era, are you talking about the very, 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 very early games? Because, I mean, you know what my favourite games are. Rolling Thunder, love it to bits. 1942, Terra Cresta. What classic video game do I love? Well, you know what, you've already mentioned that Galaxian, love it to bits. I love Asteroids as well. You know, they're two, absolutely, I play them a lot, I really do. You want my favourite game from that era? Oh, that's a tough one. You know what my favourite game is, but I'm not allowed to pick that one. You know, that's difficult. I mean, I love Donkey Kong as well. Galaxian is an excellent game, I love it. Could I play it for hours and hours? Or, I mean, let me put it this way. If I was put in a desert, or if somebody came along and says, right, I'm going to take every single video game system that you own away, and we will only give you one arcade game, what would it be? Would it be Asteroids? Probably not. Would it be not Space Invaders, would it be Galaxian? Probably not. I would love that, but again, it can be a bit monotonous. I would probably go for Donkey Kong. It's a game that I never really paid any attention to until watching the King of Kong. I realised that it's such a deep game, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, there's a lot of wee tricks and idiosyncrasies and just things that go on in the game that I never even knew existed. It's a game that would take a long time to master, and it's probably one of the reasons why it's, you know, there's a handful of classic video games that every sort of world champion wants to master. That is Pac-Man, Donkey Kong. Probably that is the biggest one, I think, because it had the film about it, obviously, King of Kong. But it's a game that's played for a reason, because it's a cracking game, it really is. You know, and it's incredible to think it came out in, I don't know, 1982, something like that. So yeah, 100% Donkey Kong. What are your favourite home conversions, either official or cheeky rip-offs of early 80s games? Favourite home versions? Well, we're going to have to talk about the Commodore 64. There was never Space Invaders, considering it was one of the first arcade games, there was very few actual Space Invader games for the home systems. I mean, there was, I suppose in the Spectrum there's different ones, but I can't really recall many Space Invader clones. You know, looking at it now, I'm sure that the Spectrum and the home systems, Commodore 64, BBC and that kind of stuff, I'm sure they could do pixel perfect versions of Space Invaders. In fact, I'd love to see that, because as we've probably seen, there's been, I mean, I've done a mashup of Berserk, which came out fairly recently, and then there's also a brand new version of Scramble, which is arcade perfect. So yes, Space Invaders, there weren't really any. Galaxian, I would have to go for a game called Galaxy, and it was by a company called Kingsoft, I think it was, and it was basically, in fact, you know what, I didn't know that at the time because I'd never heard of it. It was more kind of Galaga. It played like Galaxian, but it had the mothership would come down and it would put down the wee tractor beam so it could take away. So, but to me that was sort of like the best version of Galaxy, and I played that an awful lot in the Commodore 64. On the C64 there was a game called Exterminator by, oh bloody hell, who made it? Bubble Bus. Yeah, there you go. I can't remember what I had for my tea last Tuesday or yesterday, but I can tell you who wrote Exterminator on the Commodore 64 back in 1983. Yeah, Bubble Bus. This game, Exterminator, it was like Centipede, except it had, well, yeah, it did have centipedes, but it had spiders, and it also had this. No, it wasn't a spider. Or was it a spider? I can't remember. It had this eagle that used to come on, and it had this really excellent kind of eagle crying type sound effect. It was excellent. So yeah, Exterminator by King Bubble Bus. That was in the C64. Scramble, I used to play Scramble with a K, Skramble. Scramble 64, I think it was called. That was its full Sunday name. That was by Analog Software. That was Scramble. Donkey Kong would have been Kong. In fact, no, I'm talking nonsense. Well, Kong was by Analog. I did a mashup fairly recently. Atari brought out a version of Donkey Kong which is excellent. Plays really, really well. Plays almost perfect for the arcade. So yeah, there was that. Anything else? I mean, there was other conversions of stuff like Hunchback and that kind of stuff. Obviously, later on, you know, Imagine, or under the sort of Ocean, it was Ocean under they bought over Imagine Software, and they released arcade conversions under the Imagine label. I loved all of these ones on the C64. I mean, Yer Kung Fu, I think's excellent. You know, I know some people think it's blocky looking. Yeah, it probably is blocky looking, but I thought that Yer Kung Fu in the C64 was excellent. Greenberry, wasn't quite so fond of that. It did look very expanded sprite, you know, graphics. Playing it now, I realise it's actually a pretty good conversion. What else? Yer Kung Fu. What else did they make? Yeah, how can I forget? Hypersports. Hypersports was bloody excellent. Absolutely fantastic conversion of the arcade. There wasn't, in fact, I tell a lie, I was going to say there wasn't an official track and field. There was, but it was only released in, I think it was actually released by Konami on the C64, and I think it also came out in the NES and also in Atari. But it was only released in the United States. I mean, I got a copy of it eventually, but Decathlon, or track and field wise, as much as I liked Daley Thompson's Decathlon, it wasn't really, it didn't play that well, you know. It didn't seem to respond accurately to like shaking your joystick, whereas the Activision Decathlon was fantastic. It was real raw stuff, you know. There was no prisoners. If you weren't waggling that joystick fast enough, you would slow right down. So yeah, Activision Decathlon was definitely my sort of my track and field game of choice. Can't think of anything else. Robotron, there was a version called, was it Robotron? Was it? I can't remember. I'll need to actually do a mashup of that. Released by Analog Software. Now apparently it actually supported 2 joysticks, but I didn't have 2 joysticks back then. And back then I had no interest in Robotron. I'd heard of the game. It was only when I got to play twin joystick Robotron back in when would it be, 2001. That's when I first discovered Robotron. But yeah, there was a version of that by Analog Software, but again, I'd never really heard of Robot. I'd kind of heard of it, probably read about it in computer video games, but I had no interest in playing it. So yeah, that is that. And the last bit of Jimmy's question, for fun, what are the worst conversions you've ever played? What made them so shite? The one that I've spoke about quite a few times, and I've also featured, I think it also features in my Arcade Perfect My Arse trailer, is Crazy Kong by Interceptor Software, which was a version of Donkey Kong, and it was probably, if somebody had set out to make, apologies, I think I must have I must have ranted 2 gig, hence the reason it stopped. Yeah, Crazy Kong, I says, if there was a competition to make the worst version of Donkey Kong, then that one would have won hands down. It is bloody awful. Graphics are woeful. It plays way too fast. Sounds garbage. The worst part of it isn't the sound or the graphics, it's the playability. Trying to actually, you've got to be pixel perfect to get up a ladder, and 9 times out of 10 a barrel will wipe you out. It's awful, it's bloody awful. And that was the very, very, very first game that I ever owned from my Commodore 64, and I can remember playing it and thinking, this is shite, and that was the very first video game I ever actually got to own. So yeah, Crazy Kong. Bad conversions. Let me think. Bad conversions. Yeah, there were certainly a few. Enduro Racer, which I loved in the arcades. The version on the Commodore 64 was just bloody woeful. Awful, no sense in movement or anything. Another classic game would be Outrun. Virtually every version. I got it. In fact, I had an Atari ST at that point, and I remember seeing a screenshot of it, and I thought, that looks amazing. It looks arcade perfect. You know, all the colours. And then I went up to the computer shop where I used to buy all my games, and the owner Ray had Outrun for the ST. He was an Atari dealer, and I got him to put this Outrun on. And I remember the game starting, or not the game, it loaded up and you got the music and you thought, oh excellent, here we go, here we go, here we go. And it used this really bizarre kind of mouse. You had to go up to the top and click on menu, start game. And he started this game and I thought, whoa, is this an April Fool? Bloody hell, it was shocking. Absolutely diabolical. But that was back when companies seemed to think they could put out any pap on the 16-bit. As long as the graphics looked nice, you know, static graphics looked nice, then people would buy them, and that's probably the case. But a lot of the early games back then were bloody terrible, and I've got to say that was one of the worst. Outrun on the 16-bit was diabolical. Street Fighter 2 was, you know, awful, absolutely awful on the Amiga and the ST. Saying that Street Fighter arcade game is bloody diabolical. So that's probably an unfair comparison. Anything else that's terrible? And I'll tell you one game that I was really looking forward to playing, and I was gutted when it was released, and that's Rolling Thunder. One of my favourite arcade games, love it to bits. And when I heard that it was coming out, I had an ST at that point. I was so excited because here I was, I could now get to play this game, the game I loved in arcades. I was now going to get to be able to play it at home, and it got released, and it's just crap. It's jerky. The sound, probably the thing that gutted me the most was the music was away. The music, they'd done this really awful kind of sort of like not SID tunes, what do you call it? Chip tunes. This is the sort of phrase that's doing the rounds at the moment. Yeah, they'd done this really awful chip tunes kind of version of the Rolling Thunder track, but it didn't have the, you know, the sort of bass. It didn't have that going on, and it was just, it completely lost the atmosphere. And the game itself was just terrible, really terrible. I actually really need to mean and go back. In fact, I need to do an arcade perfect my arse for Rolling Thunder and just see if they're as bad as I remember. So yeah, that was probably the biggest disappointment game wise or conversion wise for myself, Jamie. That was the one that really I was gutted when it came out, and I thought that's just terrible, it really was. So yeah. Okay, very last question. That's all of Jamie's. Thanks Jamie for them. I do appreciate the time you put into putting these out. And Mr. Down the Rabbit Hole, Mr. Canadian Meister himself, Kevino, the YouTube, or Kevin. Yeah, thanks Kevin, thanks for the question. For the Friday Waffle, hi Alan, out of curiosity, do you have a schedule you try to stick to with your videos? At what point has it been too long since you last uploaded a video? You know what? I do try and put out videos, not every day. I mean, I think at one point I used to put out videos every day, and it became a bit of a bind, you know, time wise, and I felt I was putting out videos just for the sake of putting out a video, you know. And some of the videos, I mean, there's a lot of videos that I've put out and I look back at them and I think, that's crap, why would anybody want to watch it? So, you know, about when I started this job that I've got about 6 months ago, I'd reached a kind of point where I thought, right, I can't afford the time that I'm putting into this, the time that I'm giving to this YouTube channel. It can't continue. Something's got to give. In fact, I'll tell you what it was. I mean, I don't mind admitting that. My wife, she made a comment because I was coming in from work and I was going right upstairs to make videos. This is when I was using my MAME cab for doing like Arcade Perfect, My Arse and that kind of stuff, and that was the year that was. I was going right upstairs and I was spending 2 hours, you know, making videos. And my wife's normally very patient, she doesn't really bother too much, you know, she appreciates it as a hobby. But she just made the comment one day, she says, you know, we never see you, you're coming in for work, you're going straight upstairs. By the time you come downstairs, you know, your daughter's going to bed. And it did strike a chord with me. I thought, she's right, you know, and I realised then something had to give. And I did contemplate just, you know, winding up the channel. I did, it got to that point, I thought, do I wind it up? And a few people, you know, thanks, very, very appreciated. They basically said, look, please don't give it up, you know, we enjoy watching your channel. And, you know, I thought to myself, well, you know what, here's some guys that appreciate what I'm doing, and if I'm being honest, I thought to myself, I'm going to be letting these guys down. And I thought, the fact that there's people out there, and let's be honest, I don't know you guys personally, I've never met you at all. The fact that there's people who'd never met were giving up their own time to watch stuff that I'd put out, and even had the, you know, gave up the time to write to me and say, look, please don't give up your channel, we enjoy it, we'll miss what you do. So I thought, no, I'm going to do that. But I realised something had to change, so I had to cut back on what I was doing. I mean, to kind of fill it in a wee bit, Kevin, 6 months ago, or in fact October last year, I was told I moved companies. The company that I worked for got taken over by another company, and within a week of working for the new company, I got told that I didn't have a job and I was going to be getting made redundant. So for 2 months I was basically sat in the house, still getting paid, and I had no work given to me at all. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I was contacting like my boss and that, and they basically said to me, look, just sit tight, you know, blah blah blah, we know where you are, sort of thing. So for like 2 months I was basically sat in the house with all this time in the world, and my wife was at work, my daughter was at school. So I started investing, I started making a lot more videos. I was able to I had all the time in the world, so I was putting out these videos every couple of days, and you know, they were taking me forever to make. But then when when I started working again, I mean, I'm still in that position at the moment, but I'm kind of doing a full-time job. I realised things have to change, so I thought, rather than knock the channel on the head, I'm going to cut back. So I have cut back. I mean, I still try, I do still try and put out a video every couple of days if I can. One thing that I would kind of say to you, Kevin, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. Now, I'm probably err on the side of quantity over quality. I mean, I've done I've done something like, I don't know, 550 odd videos. Now there's guys in the sort of the YouTube retro gaming community who've made a fraction of the videos that I've made, but they've got a shitload more subscribers, and as far as I'm concerned, they're bloody damn sight better than what I actually do. So it's not about quantity. I think there's a bit of me thinking, if you put out videos every single day, then people are going to stop paying attention. They're going to stop watching your videos. I think you can make too many videos. But on the flip side, if you're only putting out one video a month, then people are very quickly going to stop watching you, because they're going to go to your channel. Oh, it's the same video. 2 weeks later, they're going to go to your channel. No, there's no new content. You might do that for a couple of months, and if there's no new content, then you'll probably say, I might as well unsubscribing, and that's what I would do. I mean, there used to be guys that I used to watch all the time, and they just weren't putting out any content. So it's a fine line between putting out too much and not putting out enough. I would say, if you were putting out, maybe as a minimum, I would probably say 2 videos a week. You know, one every maybe 3 days, I think's probably a minimum. Even one a week's probably not enough. There's not enough content in there to keep people interested. That's my personal opinion. I would say try and go for maybe 3 a week, something like that. I go for one every couple of days. It's very rare now that I'll do 2 videos in a trot. What I may do is I might do a Friday Waffle, and then tomorrow, you know, I'll make if I've got a spare 15 minutes, I might put out a quick 10-minute video. But in the main, I try and do one every couple of days. I'm not saying that's the right or wrong, but I would probably say try and do at the very least 2, possibly 3 videos a week, because you need to keep people are watching you because they enjoy what you put out, and you need to keep them interested. You know, if you were watching a TV channel and it's just playing the same repeats over and over again, you'd stop watching it. And it's exactly the same for YouTube. That's what I think anyway. And what was the last one you said here? At what point has it been too long since you last uploaded a video to YouTube? Because I enjoy making these, I've never thought, oh Christ, I better make another video. I've not made one for ages. You know, if anything, I've had to consciously cut back in videos, so making them's never been an issue. The longest I've gone not making videos would be when I was on holiday last year, but I'd actually made a few before I went, so I was able to kind of upload one every couple of days. But yeah, I think maybe 3 days is probably about the longest I would maybe go without putting a video out, because I really appreciate people watching my channel, and at the end of the day, I look upon me as like being a TV channel. People are only going to watch it if there's new content. If it's the same stuff, if it's the same video that's been up for 3-4 weeks, people are just going to switch off. So I do like to try and, you know, call it a cliche, I like to try and keep my viewers interested, because I do appreciate all the sort of feedback and the support that you guys have given me. So yeah, that's that. Coming up, what can I say? Next week I've got my race from Friday evening through to, I'll not be back till Monday, so it's going to be probably Tuesday. Next, you know, I'll make a video, it'll be Tuesday sort of thing, but I'll still be putting out a few videos next week before I go away and that thing. Coming up, what have I got? Is there anything? I'm intending to try and get a That Was Year That Was. I want to get one of these put out. And what else? I am definitely going to be getting the second part of John Studley on Blimey It's Only, and I was talking to my mate Tony Temple yesterday, I think it was, and Tony is happy to come on and have a chat. So probably in the next, I would say certainly in the next 3-4 weeks, I'm going to be putting up questions for Tony Temple. Now, if anybody doesn't know Tony is the current world record holder on missile command on sort of championship settings. Tony broke the world record about 4 years ago, and he still holds the world record for it. He's an absolute top bloke. I mean, he's a good mate. I've known Tony for I don't know, 14 years I think. I've met him, he lives down in London, I've met him plenty of times. I met him just fairly recently, I met him down at, I saw him again down at Play Blackpool. But Tony's a good guy, so I'm going to be getting Tony on. I'm going to get Top Egg John Studley. Excellent bloke. Get John on for part 2 of his interview as well. So that's it guys. Listen, I don't want to keep this going on, it's probably been dragging on way too long. As usual, thank you for watching. Next week, or the next Friday Waffle, I'll probably post up later on what to talk about, but as usual guys, please keep the questions coming. Also, you know, there's times where I think I've not got anything to talk about, but when I see questions getting posted, it's always it gives me a bit of lift and gives me stuff to talk about. So please keep the questions coming. If you enjoy watching it guys, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe. If you've not, you know, subscribed, please do so if you want to keep watching. Thanks to all my current subscribers. I always appreciate what you guys do. Very lastly guys, thank you so much for watching.